The roses on the reception table were still perfect, ivory petals untouched, arranged with a care that felt almost sacred, as if someone believed beauty alone could hold a moment together. They didn't belong to the noise, the laughter, the music that filled the room. They belonged to something quieter, something still, something that hadn't yet realized it was about to be broken. My name is Evelyn, and 40 minutes into my daughter's wedding reception, my husband placed an envelope in front of me and ended 22 years of marriage without ever raising his voice. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The weight of it was enough. The shape of it was enough. The timing of it told me everything he didn't bother to say. He stood beside me, adjusting his cufflinks with that familiar, restless precision, smoothing something invisible over and over again. The same gesture he used when he was nervous, but determined not to show it. Anyone watching would have seen a composed man, a proud father doing his duty at his daughter's wedding. But I saw the truth in the way he avoided my eyes, in the way his jaw tightened for a second too long, in the way his presence beside me felt like something already halfway gone. "I need you to sign it tonight," he said quietly. "It'll make things easier." Easier. The word didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It didn't sting. It settled. Heavy. Final. Like the soft thud of something being lowered into the ground. Across the room, my daughter Lila was laughing, her veil slipping slightly to one side, her face flushed with happiness that looked almost unreal in its brightness. Her new husband spun her gently, and she leaned into him without hesitation, without doubt, like trust was something simple and safe. She didn't know. She couldn't know. Not today. "She'll notice," I said, my voice steady in a way that didn't match what lived underneath it. "Then step outside with me." I shook my head. "I'm not leaving." He said my name like a warning, low and controlled, but something inside me had already gone still. Not empty, just settled. Like the moment right before a storm finally breaks after months of thick, unmoving air. So I signed, right there at the table, with music drifting through the room and glasses clinking around us. I signed every page. My hands didn't tremble. That was the strangest part. Months ago, I would have shaken so badly I couldn't hold the pen. Months ago, I would have begged for an explanation I already knew. But not now. Now I understood silence better than I ever had. I didn't cry. I didn't look at him when I finished. I simply placed the pen down and folded my hands in my lap, the way I used to when I was trying to keep myself from saying something I couldn't take back. He took the envelope, nodded once, and within half an hour, he was gone. Not alone. I had known about her. Not every detail, not the full shape of it, but enough. Enough to recognize the quiet distance that had grown between us like something living. Enough to understand that I had been sharing a home with someone who had already stepped out of it, long before he physically walked away. Caroline sat beside me a few minutes later, her presence immediate, grounding, like she had crossed the room without ever letting me out of her sight. "What just happened?" she asked softly. "He served me divorce papers." Her face shifted, disbelief cracking through the surface. "Here?" "Yes." She reached for my hand, her grip firm, real. "What do you need?" I looked toward the cake being cut, at Lila smiling like nothing in the world could touch her, and something inside me tightened. Not breaking, just holding. "Another slice," I said, "and don't tell her. Not tonight." Caroline squeezed my hand and left, and I stayed where I was, watching everything unfold as if I were both inside it and slightly outside of it. like my body had remained, but something else had stepped back to observe. The music sounded distant, like it was coming from another room. But what no one knew, not even him, was that I had already made a decision that morning. To understand that moment, you have to understand my mother. She lived in the house I grew up in, a quiet place filled with sunlight and routines that never changed. After my father died, she stayed there alone, not because she had to, but because she refused to be displaced from the life she had built. There was a kind of quiet strength in her, the kind that didn't announce itself, but never moved. When she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, something in her sharpened. Not fear, never fear. Clarity. A quiet urgency that showed in the way she held her teacup, in the way she finished sentences with more intention, in the way she began putting things in order, as if time had become something measurable. We started having lunch together every other week. Those afternoons slowed everything down. One day, she set her teacup down and looked at me in a way that made me feel seen, in a way I hadn't realized I needed. "I've been putting things in order," she said. I thought she meant a will, something distant, something I wasn't ready to touch yet. But she meant more. She explained it simply, without drama, without fear. How easily things could be lost. How quickly something built over decades could become something shared, divided, or quietly taken away. She didn't mention my husband. She didn't need to. "I want what I leave behind to stay yours," she said, completely. At the time, I nodded. I thought I understood. I didn't. Around that same time, my husband started changing in ways that were small enough to ignore, but constant enough to matter. Later nights, shorter answers, a kind of absence that lived inside the room even when he was standing right there. Then one evening, I saw a message on his phone. It wasn't dramatic, no confession, no explanation, just enough truth to remove any doubt. I didn't confront him, not right away. I sat with it, carried it, turned it over in my mind until it stopped feeling like a shock and started feeling like something inevitable. When I told my mother, she didn't react. She simply said, "Then I'm glad I did what I did when I did it." She had already protected me. When she passed, everything was already secured. The morning of Lila's wedding, I drove to finalize it. I sat in my car longer than I meant to, staring at my reflection, feeling the weight of something ending and something else beginning at the same time. Then I went inside, and I signed. 3 hours later, I watched my daughter walk down the aisle. 4 hours after that, my husband asked for my signature. What followed wasn't easy. Silence has a way of stretching when it's no longer shared. There were nights that felt longer than they should have been, moments where memory arrived without warning. But one thing never wavered. What my mother protected stayed mine. 2 years have passed. I live in a space that feels like it belongs to me in a way I had forgotten was possible. The plants on my balcony don't match. Some lean too far toward the light. Some barely hold on. I keep them anyway. Some nights are heavy, but most mornings, I stand with my coffee and watch the light come in, and I feel something steady beneath it all. Not just survival, something quieter, something stronger. My husband thought he understood timing. He thought he chose the moment. He thought I would stay quiet. And he was right about one thing. I didn't make a scene. But he was wrong about everything else. Because long before he placed that envelope in front of me, my mother had already rewritten the ending. And I am still here.